It was Christmas morning, the kind that feels wrapped in warmth before the day even begins. The tree shimmered softly in the corner, its lights reflecting off ornaments collected over decades. The smell of cinnamon rolls drifted through the house, rich and sweet, blending with the faint scent of pine. My grandson bounced on his heels near the tree, barely able to contain himself as he waited for permission to open his gifts. I sat cross-legged on the floor, smiling at his excitement, feeling grateful just to be there. That's when my daughter-in-law placed a box in my hands. She looked me straight in the eyes, her lips curving into a knowing smile, and said, "Open it. You're going to hate it." Laughter rippled through the room. Everyone assumed it was harmless teasing, a little holiday humor. I laughed too, not wanting to dampen the moment. But something about her tone made my chest tighten. When I lifted the lid and saw what was inside, my heart sank so fast it felt like the air had been knocked from my lungs. My hands went cold. I didn't say a word. I simply closed the box, set it carefully back beneath the tree, and forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. My name is Helen. I'm 62 years old, a retired schoolteacher, and a widow. Christmas has always been sacred to me. When my husband was alive, we treated it like a season of love rather than a single day. We decorated the tree together, baked cookies for neighbors, wrapped gifts late into the night with music playing softly in the background. After he passed, I promised myself those traditions wouldn't die with him. I would keep them alive for our son, and later, for the grandchild who became the light of my life. This Christmas was meant to be special. My son, Michael, had invited me to spend the day with him, his wife Sabrina, and their son, Caleb. Caleb is 8 years old. Energetic, curious, and deeply attached to me. We bake together, decorate cookies, and every year he insists on placing the angel ornament that once belonged to his grandfather at the very top of the tree. To him, Christmas is magic. To me, being his grandmother is what makes it magical. That morning, I woke early and packed tins of homemade cookies alongside carefully chosen presents. Soft gloves for Michael. A scarf for Sabrina. A Lego set Caleb had been talking about for weeks. I wanted the day to feel warm and generous, the way Christmas should. Their house glowed when I arrived. Twinkling lights framed the windows, stockings lined the mantel, and the living room looked like it belonged on a greeting card. Caleb ran to me instantly, wrapping his arms around my waist and shouting, "Grandma." My heart swelled as I hugged him, reminding myself this love, was what mattered. Yet beneath the cheer, a familiar unease lingered. Sabrina smiled politely, but her eyes were distant. She accepted the scarf with a quick nod and set it aside without comment. I told myself not to dwell on it. It was Christmas. We gathered around the tree. Caleb tore into his Lego set with delight and ran back to hug me again. Michael thanked me for his gloves, his voice soft. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope. Then Sabrina lifted a box from under the tree and placed it in my lap. "Open it," she said lightly. "You'll hate it." Laughter again. I laughed too, though a chill ran through me. I untied the ribbon slowly, my heart pounding, unaware that this small box would turn the happiest morning of the year into one of the most painful moments of my life. Inside wasn't a sweater. Or a book. Or anything thoughtful. It was a framed document. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. My smile froze as comprehension settled in. It was a printed certificate for a senior living community tour. At the bottom, a note was scrawled in thick black ink, "Time to start planning ahead." Heat rushed to my face. My hands trembled. People leaned in, waiting for a reaction. Caleb knelt beside me, eyes wide. "Grandma, what is it?" he asked. I couldn't answer. I closed the box carefully, as if it might shatter, and slid it back under the tree. "Just something silly," I said quietly. The room fell awkwardly silent. Michael shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting between me and Sabrina. He knew, I could see it, but he said nothing. Sabrina leaned back, arms crossed, a faint smirk on her face. "I thought it was practical," she said sweetly. "You know, before it becomes necessary." There was no kindness in her voice. Only a message. I refused to cry. Not there. Not in front of my grandson. I focused on Caleb's laughter as he played with his toys, using it to mask the ache growing inside my chest. The holiday I cherished had become a stage for quiet humiliation. That framed paper told me exactly how Sabrina saw me, old, unwanted, and already being pushed aside. I stayed silent through breakfast, through the rest of the day. I smiled. I clapped. I helped clean up wrapping paper. But every glance from Sabrina felt like a challenge. When we sat down to eat, my appetite was gone. Doris, my sister, leaned over and whispered, "Helen, are you okay?" I nodded, afraid my voice would break. Later, as I helped Caleb build his Lego set, he looked up at me and asked, "Grandma, you're staying forever, right?" I hugged him tightly. "Of course, sweetheart." But I wasn't sure anymore. That night, driving home past glowing houses, my heart felt heavier than ever. My own home greeted me with the scent of pine and the quiet stillness of a Christmas left unfinished. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at leftovers I couldn't eat, replaying Sabrina's words in my mind. Holding the quilt I'd made for Caleb, each square stitched with memories, I knew something had to change. Staying silent would only give her more power. When Doris called, she didn't let me hide. "You can't let her erase you," she said firmly. "This isn't just about you. It's about Caleb." That's when I knew. I wouldn't explode in anger. I would speak with dignity. A few days later, I met Michael at a cafe. My hands shook, but my words were clear. That wasn't a gift, I told him. It was meant to push me out. He admitted his failure. His silence. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out the framed certificate. Without hesitation, he tore it in half and threw it away. "This isn't who we are," he said. Relief flooded me. When I returned to their house later that week, Michael stood beside me. Caleb ran into my arms. Sabrina stayed silent, but this time, her silence had no power. From that moment on, everything shifted. I hadn't reclaimed my place through anger. I reclaimed it through truth. And every Christmas since, I remember this. My place was never hidden under a tree in a box. It was always where it belonged, in their hearts.